Hi, everyone. Welcome to our fourth installment of SBIFF Film Talk. We're so excited to have you here. My name's Audrey, if you weren't already aware. And we're going to kick things off by starting with a clip from the Beelievers. And then our director, Leah Bleich, is here and we'll be talking about the film afterwards. So let's start with that clip.
When I open a beehive, I forget about all my problems.
A lot of times where people think they have mean bees, they're actually very gentle, they're just very busy.
The world without bees would be a sadder place and a less sweet place.
The reason it's so important to protect the honeybees, I feel, is they're excellent teachers.
There she is, right there. How you doing, Queenie? Here we go, kind of pushing you a little bit. I sometimes feel like I'm a bee myself. My name is Paul Cronshaw. I am the bee man. I started keeping bees 40-some years ago when I was a senior at Santa Barbara High School. And there was a beehive in the back of the classroom. And I would, instead of listening to the teacher, I would be listening to the bees. And I caught bee fever at an early age.
Leah, welcome.
Hello, good to be here.
Did I say your name wrong? I think I said Leah Bleich right after you corrected me, and it's Leah Bleich. I'm
It's
so
okay.
sorry.
I'll be having this problem my entire life. It's Bleich.
Bleich, okay. Leah Bleich. So this film, The Beelievers, was part of our 2017 lineup. Would you take us back to kind of the development stages of this and where you got started with the bees? Were you a bee novice back then? Or
I was. Well, so this film was produced as a part, I was a junior at UC Santa Barbara at the time. And it was produced as a part of Chris Jenkins' green screen class, which is about making short form documentaries centered on the environment. And I knew I wanted to direct a project and I really wanted to find an interesting story to tell. And as I was thinking about this and formulating ideas, I went home. It was over spring break at the time, and a bee swarm landed on the tree in our front yard. And we didn't know what to do or who to call. There was just a huge swarm of bees hanging out in our front yard. And so my mom called the only beekeeper that she knew at the time. And this extremely eccentric man pulled up, full beekeeping outfit on. He had all of this gear, all these accoutrements, and he was so excited about the bees. And he was telling us all these stories about seeing beehives or seeing swarms and picking them up and driving in his car in a full bee suit in order to save them and all of this different stuff. And it just seemed like a really juicy place to start because there's a certain level of eccentricity that comes to keeping bees, and it seemed like a fun place to get to explore.
so then how did you sort of progress with that initial idea and go out to find your other eccentric bee keeping folk?
Well, I started to see what the community looked like in Santa Barbara because this was up in the Bay Area. And I found out that there was a Santa Barbara Beekeepers Association led by Paul Cronshaw, who we just saw in the clip. Although I'm not sure if he's still leading the association. It's now been a few years. And so I figured that was a good place to start if there was a collection of people that were already doing this. And what I discovered is that there were all types of people. So from Paul, we went to the Earth Day Fair and checked out all the bee people there. And everybody was referring us to other people that they had met through the community of beekeepers in the area. And we were able to very quickly explore the whole infrastructure of bees in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, so will you tell us a bit about working with the bees itself and being actually on the ground with live bees as you're there trying to make this documentary?
Yeah. It was really fun and really silly. This for many of us, this was our first project, and definitely our first project working as a team. And so we're getting familiar ourselves with the cameras and with this dynamic as a crew. And meanwhile, we're suiting up in the full beekeeping gear with the hoods and the masks and the gloves, being forced to be surrounded by these thousands of stinging insects. So that was it's initially very uncomfortable to be surrounded by bees, as one might imagine. You're a bit on guard, but as the beekeepers will tell you, if you're relaxed and you're not aggravating the bees, they're not going to come at you with stress as well. And so it actually there's something soothing about it, about hearing them around you and knowing that you're safe. We had one bee sting on the crew, and it was in the middle of an extraction. So I was told the bees were stressed, and so it was not to our fault, or we were not to be blamed. And then on the whole, it was also fun because we got a lot of honey. We got a lot of honey and honeycomb, and a lot of little freebies along the way. Freebies, no pun intended.
I knew we were gonna laugh and smile. There's just something about the word bees.
Yeah.
It's just so joyful.
It's fun to say.
Yeah, totally. Speaking of, can you tell us a bit more about what you've done since? Because as we often see with documentary filmmakers, when you take on a topic like this and kind of getting immersed in this new world, you sort of end up becoming a champion for that topic. Has that been your experience at all? Have you kind of furthered your bee prowess since doing this project?
I definitely feel like I have an affinity for bees and beekeepers that I did not have before. And I'm always eager to share what I learned from this experience with the people that come across, in the times that I've seen a swarm since then. I'm so excited to tell everybody, no, they're super peaceful. It's very unlikely that you're going to get stung. Run through it, enjoy it. I would love to get to keep bees once I have a yard and have escaped from my tiny apartment living in LA, which is where I currently live. So I feel like I'm going to see bees differently for the rest of my life. And hopefully this can just be the start of a lifelong relationship with bees and not just the end, the beginning and the end.
Is there anything that, since it's such a broad topic as well, the safety of bees and the issue with the pesticides and all the issues bees are facing, is there anything with that big of a topic that you felt like couldn't fit into the film, or that any information that you think didn't make it into the film that you wish you had, or that stuck with you maybe, but didn't make it into the final cut?
Yeah, the thing is, because it's a short documentary and because we were keeping it under 15 minutes, everything's going to end up being a little cursory. So I think we cover a pretty broad array of issues in the film overall. We talk about pesticides, we talk about the disease, but we don't go into depth on any of them. And I think that there's a lot to be said about exploring what the long term looks like without bees. And how much of a reality that is, because that's something that people are often very afraid of and think about often. So I think having the opportunity to really explore an ecosystem where this has been something that's afflicted the environment would be really interesting, and is something that I would hope people would be responsive to.
All right. So shifting a little bit, because you said you're in LA now. After this film was in the festival, you actually participated in 10-10-10 at one point, is that right? Or at some point? So you've sort of grown with the festival a bit. Can you take us a bit through that, and then just what you've kind of evolved to since then and where you're at now?
Yeah. My directing career has been very much tied to SBIFF now, come to think of it, because this was the first project that I ever directed, and it was through the university. But then because of this experience, I was able to take this project and use it as a part of my application when I was applying for the 10-10-10 directing competition. I don't know if everybody's familiar, but it's a competition where young filmmakers have the opportunity to it's crazy, but produce and direct a short film from pre to post production in 10 days. I guess you have a little bit of extra time for pre-production, but it is a gnarly, very, very intense 10-day period. And that was my first narrative directing experience was through the 10-10-10. And because I had gone through such a pressure cooker of a directing experience on that film, the next project that I did was the last film that I directed at UCSB, and it was a really positive experience. And so much of that was because my crew had bonded so closely during the 10-10-10 that we knew each other so well. And we were able to really execute something that was everything that we're hoping that it would be. And making that film and having that positive experience honestly changed my life. So
Awesome.
Grateful to opportunities like SBIFF provided.
Awesome. What has your filmmaking trajectory since then kind of been? What are you involved with now? And is there anything you're working on currently? And how are you doing during all of this that we're living through together?
Yeah, what a time. What a time indeed. Grateful for my health. I have a job and I'm grateful for that as well. So post college, I moved down to LA and began a career on the business end of the film industry. I worked at a talent agency called CAA for a year and then transitioned into a startup film studio called Solstice Studios, which is where I currently work as a creative executive, which is like an executive role on the development side. We have a movie coming out next week called Unhinged with Russell Crowe. Unfortunately, it's not releasing in California for a bit because of pandemic restrictions.
Right.
So it's going to be a bit, but it should be the first movie released back in theaters whenever theaters do open. And then, but I'm also, I mean, what I really would like to do and what I do is write and direct. So I'm currently in the final stages of a competition. I'm in the top 10. We'll see what happens for a directing competition to go make a micro budget feature in the next couple months. We'll see what happens. Either way, it feels like a good time to start looking at options and continuing to create and look for opportunities to get behind the camera.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And congrats on all of that.
Thank you.
And also for giving us such a shout out. Really glad to hear that 10-10-10 was such a positive experience
It really
for you.
was. And getting to learn as a filmmaker, ooh, amazing.
Well, that's what we're here to do, part of it. So then just to kind of finish off then, oh shoot, I had something else I was going to say and I just blanked on it, but I keep thinking of that article you mentioned when we were talking before about how about your bee awareness now, and you know that this beekeeping movement is actually pretty substantial. Could you share some of that?
Yeah, so I was just telling Audrey, I just read an article yesterday that the head of production at my company sent around because she herself keeps bees and is an avid beekeeper and she's featured in it. But it was an article in the Hollywood Reporter about the beekeepers of the entertainment industry. And I learned some fun facts in it, such as the fact that Scarlett Johansson keeps bees and that hive was actually given to her by Samuel L. Jackson. And then it was just mentioning all of these entertainment industry people. And I think it's interesting because there's a meditational component to it. Like if you're leading a hectic, stressful lifestyle, there's something very grounding about working with bees. And if you're a lover of the environment or you're a lover of the planet, as people like Leonardo DiCaprio are, who are also mentioned in this article, then they may find that despite the crazy Hollywood life, there is a lot of merit to slowing down and keeping bees.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's perfect because I remember what I was going to say. What is your, what advice, having been through the experience of, you know, the Beelievers and then also with the kind of boot camp experience of 10-10-10 and everything that you've been through to where you are now, what sort of advice would you pass on, or what have you picked up that you think is really useful that you would like to share with creatives out there or others who may have an interest in filmmaking?
Yeah, I think especially with the experience of something like the 10-10-10, just keep making things, and it doesn't need to be good. In fact, sometimes you're going to learn more if it has flaws. I look back on my 10-10-10 film and I'm like, whew, there are a lot of things in here that I would love to have fixed. But making those mistakes are what allows your future work to be better. But if you prevent yourself from doing that, or, you know, react with a perfectionist mindset, you're often going to prevent yourself from ever improving. So keep making things and finding ways to make things, even if they are flawed and rough around the edges, because everything ultimately is.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's so great. Well, thank you so much for letting us share the Beelievers and joining us here on this SBIFF Film Talk. We actually have another one coming up next week. We're doing this as a weekly thing, and it's going to be with Chris Jenkins.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, featuring one of his short films. So join us again next
Aw.
week, Thursday, same time. And Leah, thanks again so much for
Thank
being
you so
here.
much.
And yeah, take
This
care.
was lovely. Thanks everybody for joining us as well.
Thank you.